So there's a lot of moving parts to these transactions, and so much of it has to do with who is your borrower. I can speak briefly to the foreclosure process and default, and when a bank decides, this has gone far enough. One way or another, when the bank forecloses, they've said one way or another this is going to end. And so a commercial foreclosure, so you read in the paper, somebody in Pinellas County has lived in their house free for 3 years. And because they can't find the note, and it was a countrywide note to begin with, and it's lost in the garage of Bank of America somewhere, and they haven't even realized that they have this note, let alone foreclose on it. That's typically not the case in a commercial transaction. I mean, the bank knows, and especially your community banks, they know very well what is performing, what's non-performing, what's teetering on the edge. And a lot of these banks are under tremendous federal scrutiny. And so they have to maintain certain performance, they have to maintain certain capital reserves, and non-performing loans don't help them stay solvent. That being said, it's not that they don't know where the loan is, because many of these, most of them probably, are portfolio. They know exactly where this loan is. And so when a commercial bank starts when a bank starts a foreclosure on a commercial property, if there's tenants, oftentimes they're going to do an ex parte motion, meaning I am going to appear just as the bank, without the defendant, without the borrower, to put this into receivership under Florida statute. Which means, judge, let me take control of this property and collect the rents and take the rent proceeds and put it towards my note. Well, you're starting to complicate the deal a little bit. So if your client's trying to sell it and it's being partially controlled by the bank, and so your deals start to get a little bit more litigious, a little more heated, but you're not going to see a 2-year stalled foreclosure, because ultimately I'm going to jam it up on the defense as much as I can using rules of civil procedure, rules of evidence, some discovery, but they're going to overcome it, because a foreclosure case just comes down to this. Did you or did you not make your payment, sir? Well, judge, I did not, I don't think. Well, sir, can you show me where you did make the payment? No. Victory for the bank, set the foreclosure sale date. So on the commercial side, it's much, much more aggressive, and it's mainly because of the banks. The banks are smaller, they're much more in touch with their borrowers. I can tell you that on both sides of it, there sometimes are just some funny facts that come out of it. So on another, what was once an electrical contractor's building, it was being sold and it was a great deal, and the bank admitted it was a great deal. And we'd done substantial asset planning for this client years before, and so much of his assets were exempt under Florida statute and the Florida Constitution. So for example, he had a free and clear homestead. His cash was mainly in IRAs, 401ks, which are protected under Florida statute 222. He was virtually uncollectible, and his only income at the time was Social Security. And so the bank said, the bank officer said, I saw him out playing golf. He has got some money. I said, well, maybe he does. Maybe he very well may. But you can't get it. And he's perfectly content living on Social Security in his place for as long as you're willing to go after him. So, in fact, if OJ wasn't in jail, he would be pretty much what OJ did. And so a lot of it is, again, collectability, but a lot of it is I thought, how funny is it that this bank officer is tweaked out to the point to where he's angry because he saw the client playing golf. And they're making collection decisions based on that. And so we ended up settling, and we disclosed our assets and said, see, told you, it's all in an IRA. But we'll give you $10,000 out of it if you call it even. And we did, and we closed. But had that been in a money market account that was garnishable, we would have gone to the mat. We would have gone the distance, and it would have been a much more difficult battle. And so I think in summation, whether it's bankruptcy, whether it's a workout, whether it's whatever it is, you can't generalize it. So despite the fact that there's a PowerPoint out there that says, here's a short sale, here's foreclosure, here's whatever it is, you can't do it. Each client it's its own fingerprint. You know, so I can't say that your case is going to be the same as yours, because your assets are different, your income's different. Your bank could be, you could have a very reasonable bank. You could have, there's a lot of the regional banks right now that are out for blood. So if they think they can get anything, they're going for it. So I think that whether you own the real estate or whether you're working with folks in whatever capacity that own the real estate that are facing difficult circumstances, they have to really look at who they are as they proceed. They need to be mindful. To what degree, we're seeing a lot of clients now that'll say, well, while I was being sued, I shifted $300,000 to my mother's name. And we'll say, well, you know what would have been nice if you did that about a year ago. And so now, very much of what folks do with their assets is all about timing. And so while you have the exemptions under the protected assets under Florida statute, you also have Florida statutes that are called generically the Fraudulent Transfers Act, which is about as vague of a series of statutes as you can get. I mean, it virtually says you cannot move assets for the sole purpose of defrauding your creditors. And you would say, okay, well, there's probably a list of what defrauding my creditor means. Nothing. It's a 100% case law. And so, and the interesting thing about a fraudulent transfers case is that the burden shifts to the debtor. So the debtor has to show, and the burden of showing that the transfer was for estate planning. It was for some other sort of financial planning. But it was anything but to avoid my creditors. And so the burden shifts, and the law is somewhat in the favor of the creditors. So to the degree that we're starting to hear about things like strategic default, and the clients realize that they cannot continue to cash flow, that they, as you said, that they're about to, that things are okay now, but with one adjustment, it's not feasible. You're going to start to see clients start to consider planning for default, which is why strategic default, and the banks are very sensitive to that. They don't think it's fair. They think that, you know, when you signed up for the loan, you said you had all this money, and that's basically what you were guaranteeing it on, and we want it to still be available for us when you default. And to what degree your clients see it, you're going to see clients start to look to move things around and plan for the eventual potential litigation, potential workout, whatever it is. So I think in the brief period of time, that's about as simple as I think I can say it. But that in a nutshell, and what you heard earlier is I think a very accurate statement of this market. So thank you very much.